TFL EV is brought to you by Flow Charger, maker of reliable, high-quality charging stations for your electric vehicle.
Hey everybody, Tommy coming at you from outside of beautiful Nashville, Tennessee, and in this video we are comparing the two fully electric Hyundai offerings, the 2022 Hyundai Kona EV and the all-new Hyundai Ioniq 5, and in this video we're going to find out simply which one is better for the money. Now let's talk about these vehicles. What are they? Well, they're both crossovers, but they are both very different from each other. So the Kona is much smaller, it's more affordable, and it's got an entirely different architecture than the new Ioniq 5. So the Kona is based on the gasoline model, and as such, there are certain aspects of the Kona that are very different from the Ioniq. So the Kona is only available in front wheel drive. So whereas the gasoline Kona, you've got front wheel drive options, you've got all wheel drive options, this model only comes as a front driver. Now the Ioniq is available in either rear wheel drive or all-wheel drive. So if you live in a snowy state, if you live in an area where you need all-wheel drive, the Ioniq 5 is going to be the better option for you. Now, from a design perspective, the Kona has recently been refreshed for this year. So it's got an all-new front end, it's got a different rear end, it's got some side treatment differences. It does look a little weird. Certainly it looks a little bit like a fish from certain angles, but it is a very aerodynamic and slippery vehicle. It's meant to have a low drag coefficient. It's meant to have as little resistance going through the air as possible. In the rear, we've got this unique stacked lamp design, similar to the front end. We've got these highly aerodynamic wheel designs. And one thing I do like a lot about the Kona is the port for the charging location. You can see it there on the front. So a lot of stations in 2022 are pull-in, like every Electrify America, for the most part, is a pull-in station. A lot of the charge point units you'll find are going to be pull-in, and that does make it easy to simply just whoop, zip on in, and then plug in. Whereas the Ioniq 5 charge port is going to be located all the way at the rear, so it's a little bit more reversing if you go for the Ioniq 5. But from a design perspective, there is no doubt in my mind that that is a better looking car. It is, in my opinion, one of the best looking cars on the market, period. It's retro, it's futuristic, kind of looks like a 1980s Rabbit GTI mixed with a little bit of Star Trek. It's just a lovely thing to look at. So if you are into the design, certainly the Ioniq 5 is going to be the choice for you. But then, of course, you got to talk about the price differences, because you do pay for that extra size, that extra capability, and the extra design. The Kona starts at right around 34 grand, and then the loaded one starts at about 42.5, whereas the Ioniq 5 starts in the very high 30s, or just over 40 after destination. But this one, as you see, is equipped well into the 50s. So there's going to be close to a $10,000 gap between these two. And if you're just looking for all-out range, the Kona offers a lot of range for the money. So every Kona has a EPA range rating of 258 miles, whereas this Ioniq 5 is rated at 256. Of course, the maximum range in rear-wheel drive, you can get over 300, 303, but if we just look at these two in front of us, 258, 256, of course, front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive. So you're talking about mid-$30,000 range for 258 miles of range in the Kona. And that is an insanely attractive offer. And you also get a lot of power for what it is in the Kona. So 201 horsepower, but 291 pound-feet of torque running through the front wheels. The base Ioniq starts at 225 horsepower. This one has 320 though, and over 440 pound-feet of torque. But actually the front-wheel drive Kona has got more torque than the base rear-wheel drive Ioniq, which is kind of interesting. So you get a lot of performance for your money on the Kona and range for your money. But from an interior design standpoint, you also get a much more basic and kind of conventional interior layout. So you can see here lots of knobs, lots of hard buttons, which is never a bad thing in my mind. I actually prefer a lot of that in a lot of instances. Now the screen size, we've got dual 10-inch screens. You got one up here for the infotainment screen. I'm gonna bring that to life there. Easy to use, simple, quick, and then dual knobs for volume and tune, which I like. And then you've got your second screen there in the center, and then we've got hard controls for climate control as well down here in the middle. I wouldn't call this a luxurious interior. I'd call this a high value interior. Fairly small sunroof. It's well made, it's very functional, but it doesn't feel nearly as nice as the interior of the Ioniq. So this Ioniq is just borderline luxury on the way it incorporates its materials, its design, its flow. The space it offers is huge. We also have larger screens, so dual 12-inch screens in this vehicle. Got cool features like this whole center console moves. It's got the full panoramic sunroof up there. Power everything. It's got this feature where you can actually recline the driver's seat and turn it into a little bed for when you're charging. I mean, it's just next level stuff. The dual spoke steering wheel looks great. This funky digital climate panel, very different than what you'd find in the Kona. The shifter, very different from what you'd find in the Kona. So this brings a level of luxury and refinement into the equation that you don't get in the Kona electric. Now, in terms of battery capacity, that Kona right around 64 kilowatt hours. The Hyundai the Ioniq 5, 77.4 kilowatt hours. But the big difference between the two is going to be the charging speed. So this peaks out at right around 88 kilowatts of peak DC fast charging speed, where the Ioniq will blast past 200 in like the 220 range. The Ioniq is like 0 to 80%, 10 to 80% in under 20 minutes, which is just absurd. And the Hyundai Kona can simply not match that speed. So as a road tripper, you definitely want to go for the Ioniq 5 over the Kona. Now, in terms of rear seat room, the Kona is a much, much, much smaller vehicle. Certainly is a little bit tight there in the back. And then if we open up the trunk, it's not power assisted, and it's very usable for a lot of families. But if you want the ultimate in dog hauling capability, in friends and family comfort, you cannot beat the interior space on the Ioniq 5. It is just next level in just about every aspect. Even though the car looks small on camera, this thing has a longer wheelbase than some Range Rovers, which is just an insane thought to think about. But open up the power assisted trunk, fold down the seats, fit your bikes, fit everything you need for your outdoor life and activity back there. So which one should you get? Well, very different. If you are on a budget, if you are just looking for the most possible range per dollar, it is almost impossible to beat the Kona EV in 2022. It's plenty quick, it's got a pretty good ride, it's fun to drive, it's a good size, but for me, I'd go Ioniq 5 all day long. This is like Mercedes, Lexus levels of quality and luxury with futuristic styling, and that insane charging capability is gonna be what sells it for me. Neither of them really have a front trunk. The Ioniq 5 has this kind of funny little front cubby in the front, but I mean, if you want front storage space, definitely look elsewhere. But overall, two great options from Hyundai. You got the affordable value option, you got the luxury charging monster option. Let me know in the comment section below which one you'd go for. As always, this has been Tommy with TFL EV. We will see you on the next episode.